Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today we're going to discuss the impact of school closures, and we're going to share some previews of the new features we announced earlier this year as part of Portal 3. So before we get started and get into the whole thing, I do want to share a few housekeeping items. First up, please feel free to ask us anything using your Zoom console. Feel free to keep the questions flowing. We're going to have time for Q&A at the end. Secondly, stay connected. Tweet at Clever using the hashtag EdTech. Get more information that way. And finally, just know that this session is being recorded and will be shared with you after today's webinar. So getting straight to it, I'd love to introduce myself. My name is Lucia Campbell. I am a Partner Success Manager here at Clever. I've been here nearly 3 years and I love working with our partners. So my main job here is to ensure that you all are getting the most out of Clever to drive success with your districts. Also joining me today are a couple of my colleagues, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily, and I'm the product manager handling all aspects of rostering and getting connected with districts. I've been at Clever for 5 years and was previously on our partner engineering team, so some of you might have worked with me while building your integrations. I can't wait to show you the tools we've been building to make this back to school the best yet.
And hi, everyone. I'm Rob Pryor. I started at Clever 5 years ago as a success manager, and now I run the success team for our partners, and I work very closely with Lucia and Emily.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Emily. So for those of you that attended our product webinar in Q1, welcome back. Hopefully some of you did have a chance to attend then. And for those of you that are new, welcome. This webinar is actually the second one in our new series of quarterly product talks. And we're doing these because we just know how important it is for you all to know any new changes on the roadmap in advance of your customers. So ultimately with all this, we just hope that the webinars provide you with helpful updates, helpful insights so that you feel like you're set up for success to support your districts. But before we turn our attention completely to the roadmap, I do want to take a moment and reflect on how we've been responding to school closures. As you all know, in early March, things just changed dramatically due to COVID-19. Schools began to close, teachers and students were transitioning to remote learning, and the reality is that districts were turning to you all and to Clever for help. So as a result, some of the things that Clever started to really quickly prioritize were user education, for one, and in that way, we could make sure that people were accessing their learning through Clever seamlessly. So we developed things like the one we're highlighting here, the Learning at Home Guide. I know some of you may be familiar with this because you sent us resources to link out of it. The Learning at Home Guide was designed to easily help district administrators, teachers, and school tech leads by providing them a bunch of resources, but really importantly, includes resources on how to help kids log in from home. Another really great thing that we did, I really want to share today, is we started hosting these town halls with district leaders on Fridays. And during these town halls, they didn't just share their challenges and how difficult things were, but they also started to share silver linings from school closures. They started to share strategies for how they were communicating with families, and even some beginnings of their plans for the future. So that was really heartening to see. And going forward, I love actually looking at this feedback from David, who's a tech director in Oklahoma. As we all started to navigate and pivot to remote learning, it was feedback like this, telling us that a teacher who he was really worried about, who wouldn't necessarily be able to use technology straight out of the box, actually was introduced to Clever, found it so easy to use that just days later, she actually became the Clever Pro, and she was showing others how to use it virtually at her own district. So this was super validating for us here at Clever, and it also just really reinforced that this experience is shaping the future of education, potentially even changing the way that teachers will be teaching moving forward. But one more thing that it really reinforced for us, and this is something I know everyone here knows, and that's just that our teachers are really on the front line. It's important that we are empowering them on how to use this technology so they can just do what they do best, and that's teach. So for more information, more insights on that, I'm going to have Rob Pryor join us here, and he's going to share a quick update on the trends in data that we've been seeing.
Thanks, Lucia, and hi, everyone. So I've been speaking to a lot of you, many of whom are in the attendee list, so thanks for coming. And you've been gracious enough just to share how this has affected you and really shifted trends in your service model. So I just wanted to return the favor and share what we've been seeing at Clever. So for one, we've seen a really large increase in the engagement from our large size school districts. Particularly if you've worked with New York City, you'll know that they've turned to the Clever portal at this time to just quickly roll out applications to more and more of their users. We're seeing that just as a trend across our district population. We have seen a bit of a dip in the engagement from mid and small size districts. We think this is attributable to the kind of varied success rates and guidance we've seen across these districts and getting students set up at home. And we've also have observed a slight decline along the daily student active usage, though it's a metric we're hoping to drive and get back up. One of the brighter spots is we have seen an increase in daily active teacher usage, and that's up about 30%, which is a pretty market change. And I want to speak a little bit more to that. So diving in a bit more on the teacher engagement front, we saw on the we saw really two big shifts here. One was in our Clever Library product, which if you're new to the library, it's our repository of free EdTech applications where teachers can go in directly and find, discover, and install applications to use. So we saw that 1 in 3 teachers visited the library during this initial school closure period. And we also saw that our features in the portal, such as teacher pages, customizing, setting up a digital classroom, they've also never seen higher engagement. So we've seen just a big shift in how teachers are turning to the Clever Library to get established their virtual classroom so they can start engaging with students. And lastly, I wanted to point to we have a feature now in the portal where teachers can actually recommend library applications to each other. We saw a 5 times increase with that feature. So five times more teachers are increasing and recommending more apps to each other. All right, and I hope you've heard that we announced right around the school closure time that if you as a partner were intending to donate your product to free schools, that Clever would not bill you for your use of Secure Sync through July 1st. And we just put that out there. We had heard from some of you that this would be valuable. We had no idea what the uptake would be. And I'm just really humbled to say that it's been quite amazing. You all have added about almost 100,000 new schools to Clever from the beginning of the year. And it just really showed the power of our collaboration, working together, you turning to us in this time of need, and just donating your program and getting it out there to more students in need. So I want to thank you for that. And we do expect this trend to continue through back to school, but this is one of our largest growth periods ever, just from mid-March up until now. And we're still seeing more and more schools come on. So yeah, I want to just wrap up by saying thank you so much. Again, with the offer of free schools, donating your programs, listing your additional webinars, guidance to parents, getting families logged in. It's just been really amazing to see the power of what we can all do at this time for teachers, families, administrators, and in particular, we really want to thank you if you've been collaborating with us and donating your program. We realize just because it's a free school, that does not mean it's free for you. You're putting up additional service hours, you're taking on additional server costs, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just thrilled to be in this business, and we love working with you. And just keep the feedback coming in as we can do better here. And with that, I just want to also say we are still well positioned to support you. We've doubled down our resiliency efforts. We feel really good about our hiring going into our support teams for back to school. So just know we're here. We love talking to you. And with that, I just want to hand it back to Lucia.
Great, thanks so much, Rob. Alrighty, everyone. So as we start to prepare for what's on the horizon, we know that one of the best tools that we have actually is to look back at our learnings from the last few weeks. So as an example, at Clever with our support tickets, we actually saw that those went up at least 12x for parents, at least 10x for teachers. And a lot of these learnings from this period are informing what we tackle next. So one is summer school. Many of you may know that some districts are already starting to look ahead and think about what they're going to support with summer school. So to that end, we've developed a guide for districts. We're working closely with them so that they have the resources they need for setup. And one thing that you guys should know is that we're directing districts to actually reach out to you all and to the applications that they do want to use to understand how each of you might support summer school. Another thing that we're looking at is obviously back to school. And this is a big one, right? So ultimately, as we look ahead to back to school, we're just preparing for all possible scenarios. We know at Clever that we have some great learnings from year past. Back to school is something that we know how to do. We have that pause date system. We have infrastructure and resources. But we also recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't necessarily know nationwide which districts are going to start early or at the same time. So please just know that one of the learnings we're taking away from the last few weeks, which is around readiness and keeping user education up to date, all of that is really going to be at the heart of what we do and at the heart of our recommendations for this back to school 2020. Last thing here, families. So as we look ahead, families are one of our newest audiences we'll talk about here in a moment. And we're also going to make sure that our product is in a ready state for them, as well as our entire ecosystem of users. So with that, I want to turn our attention to the updated 2020 roadmap. This is so exciting. For one, as you all imagine, is probably has happened at your own company, school closures mean that our roadmap has in fact changed. We've accelerated some new features. We've added new features. One that I want to begin with here that you'll see is we originally were going to slate our family portal to launch in July, but because of what we're now calling the COVID-19 response month, so the month of April, we really found that there was a stark need and demand in the home space to empower families to just help kids get logged in. As simple as that. So we decided that was the time to accelerate the family portal and get it launched in April. So I'm really proud to say that our amazing product and engineering team were able to accomplish that, and it is live today and available. A couple other things that came up in April are two brand new features for teachers that we decided were critical to roll out right then and there in response to the crisis. We're going to dig into those here in just a second, but the one thing I wanted you to take away from this slide is that because of the shifts due to school closures, some of the features we announced earlier this year as part of Portal 3, so those are the ones you see there, May onward, we're just launching a little bit later, but we're still super excited to delve into those today. So let's get into it. Let's get into the portal for families. As I mentioned, Portal for Families is something that we accelerated greatly. And what does that actually do? So our Portal for Families help students log in from home. It gives folks like parents and guardians an account that they have within Clever, and they can then use that account to help their child log into their learning apps. Key thing to know here is that in order for parents and guardians to create a Clever Portal account, they must be invited by their district. So today, the way it works is very much top down. That district administrator does need to enable this. But once a parent or a guardian has an account, they'll then have the ability to download something like a Clever badge to help their student log in, or they can view any links that the district has shared with them. So one thing they won't see is all the applications shared with their child unless they log into their account. So all in all, with the Portal for Families, this is something that is just super exciting, especially for those of us at Clever that have been around for a long time. This is something that we've been talking about for years, is when would we introduce this audience to the platform? Ultimately, our goal here is to support our whole ecosystem of users. We know that having families in Clever is really important to supporting a child's learning journey, since families are such a critical component of that. So moving on, there's one thing I want to pause on, and it's this amazing feedback from Celeste. She's a teacher in Fort Wayne, and she let us know that she loves all the resources that Clever is offering, but it'd be nice to have a bit more data tracking on her students. She wants to know when have they logged in? Have they logged in? She also just let us know, I want an easy way to communicate with students. So it's really the heart of this feedback that led us to a couple of the features I am about to go over with you. Number one is teacher analytics. So teacher analytics really help teachers track student activity. And what they also let them do is to help manage that student activity and help manage and promote accountability so that students are, in fact, following along on the lesson plans that teachers have created for them. You know, and why we did this. So, as mentioned, like the feedback from Celeste, we were hearing from teachers that they just needed help knowing which students are logging in, what applications they're accessing to track that attendance, track accountability, and fortunately, we found it clever that because back in Q1, we had already rolled out EdTech analytics to district administrators, we were able to actually extend and build on that and offer this basic functionality to our teacher audience. So we're already hearing such positive feedback from teachers about this feature, and we know that it's helping them just get their virtual classroom up and running. Moving on, we also launched announcements. And this one is just, I love this one. So, announcements allow teachers to communicate easily with their students within the Clever portal. And part of why we did this is we know that with teachers and students not being in their usual physical classroom setting, they just needed new and easier ways to communicate with one another. And even before school closures and definitely after school closures, a consistent area of feedback that Clever had been hearing about from our teachers is that they just wanted an easy way to communicate with their kids through the portal. So announcements does that. We decided this was really the right time, a critical time to roll this out. It's helping teachers share announcements quickly with the whole class. But then even better, which I love, is that students can actually return quick and simple feedback to their teacher. They can use that. They can do that using plain text, but they can also use emojis. I love that because it gives kids just that little extra bit of delight, which we know is really important right now in that virtual remote setting. So let's return now to our updated 2020 roadmap. And I want to come back and just highlight the new features that we announced earlier this year as part of Portal 3. You'll notice that from May onward, we are still dedicated to rolling out so many features that we're excited about. And so without further ado, I want to bring in Emily Zhang here to tell you a lot more about these Portal 3 features.
Awesome. Thanks, Lucia. I'm excited to dive in. Earlier this year, many of you participated in Clever's annual partner survey. And in that survey and through other channels, you've told us that you wish districts were better at sharing data correctly the first time. And that's why we're building smarter data sharing, which will let you make general recommendations to all of your districts, as well as district-specific sharing recommendations. If you have general guidelines for all districts, you can use globally recommended sharing to make sure every district gets the same base level recommendations. And as you can see in this example, this is great if you cover specific subjects or specific grade levels, but you can also use this to recommend that districts share specific schools or just the whole district. We know that sometimes your team understands best what a specific district needs to share, whether that's a single missing teacher or a new school that's just purchased. And in the past, this might have led to a long back and forth with districts to get them to understand not just what needs to be shared, but how. And with smarter data sharing, your team can easily recommend sharing to a district, allowing their team to review the request and accept it with just one click, avoiding complicated troubleshooting. And like you can see here, you can get super granular with those recommendations. No matter how complex the sharing request, it becomes a one-click step for districts and a much quicker resolution for your team. So just a couple tips. As mentioned, there's two parts to this feature, global recommendations and specific recommendations. We recommend always setting a global recommendation if you generally want districts to share in the same way. So for example, all math classes in grades 3 through 5. But you should set a specific recommendation if you need more granularity or more data from just one district. Globally recommended sharing will actually be available in your dashboard soon. We'll let you know in our newsletter when this and all other features are released. And while we're putting the finishing touches on district-specific recommendations, your team will have plenty of support. We're working on thorough documentation alongside the release, so once it's rolled out, you'll have a guide through the process of setting recommendations. And in the meantime, I hope you are as excited about this as I am. I can't wait to see how much time we'll save this back to school. Building on top of the new smarter data sharing tools, we've also been working on a custom setup wizard to streamline the process of getting districts set up with your application on Clever. We've incorporated a ton of your feedback and are excited for you to be able to customize the Clever setup process for the first time. By making the steps of your onboarding process more visible, it'll make it easier for a district administrator to complete required action items. And if a district administrator pauses and comes back, they'll be taken to the same place and won't lose any momentum in completing setup. When a district connects for the first time, we'll put your sharing recommendations, global or district specific, front and center. Otherwise, districts will still be able to share all records or by schools right within the wizard. And of course, if they need something more customized than that, they can use this fourth option to get our usual sharing options. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we've heard over the years is that you want districts to better understand your app's data requirements. And we've built that right into the setup process. After they've set sharing in the first step, we'll compare it against your requirements and warn them about any potential data issues. Our goal in pushing districts to view and resolve data warnings at setup is for your team to spend less time this back to school walking districts through data fields that might be missing. You're probably already familiar with sharing and data warnings as they've been part of Clever for a while, but this is the first time we've put them in a wizard and really made that one simple process for district administrators. One thing that we haven't had before is specific setup instructions for your application, which we'll get to right now. Finally, once they've shared data and reviewed and resolved their data warnings, they'll get to the custom part of the custom setup wizard. In your dashboard, you'll be able to add additional messaging for districts. Here's an example of how you can use this feature. And by putting these instructions into the Clever dashboard as well, we're trying to proactively push districts through the full setup flow and unifying the setup experience between our system and yours so students can log in on day one. When a district indicates that they've finished this, going through all of this process, we'll send an email to your team so you can actually build this into your onboarding flow. So a couple things to know. Right now, it doesn't support screenshots, but it does allow for linking out of the Clever dashboard. So if you'd like to add screenshots or anything else like that, you can link to documentation that includes those features. And also, instructions for steps districts need to take is not the only thing you can use the custom setup wizard for. If your team would like to manage district expectations about wait times or send any other general recommendations, this is the place. There's only one setup guide per app, so if there are particular districts that are more complicated or need more handholding, you can encourage them to skip that last step and work with your team directly. We're still putting the finishing touches on this feature, and we'll let you know when it's ready for you to start customization. But now is a great time to take a look at your data errors and data warnings so that validation step is ready to go. If you have any questions, reach out to your account manager or email us at integrations@clever.com. Okay, moving on to another great feature. In general, but especially during rollover, districts make a lot of changes, both to the data they've synced to Clever and to their sharing. And we've heard feedback that you'd like to be able to have a safety stop so you can ensure major changes made by the district are intentional and won't cause any problems. So this feature will prevent those major changes from being reflected in our API, your dashboard, and in the Clever portal until someone from your team has reviewed and approved the changes. If a safety threshold is triggered, none of these changes will go through unless it's either approved by your team or the district has reverted the change. So turning this feature on will involve training your team to understand and, more importantly, monitor for safety threshold triggers. If this seems like it'd be a good fit for your team, please reach out. We'd love to add you to the beta. It'll be important to test this out before back to school so you understand what to expect when we see those major data changes coming through. Additionally, we'll be adding data greenlight to your rollover arsenal this year. You may remember this feature from our webinar earlier this year, but just as a quick refresher, this tool will allow districts to clearly communicate to you when their SAS data is ready to be synced for the new year. As many of you know, every district handles rollover differently, and they all roll over at different times. A lot of times we hear, when is this district really ready for the new school year? Or when should I schedule my rollover processes? So we designed Greenlight to help kickstart this conversation. Greenlight is, simply put, an indicator that the district is rolling over. It'll allow you and your districts to get on the same page about timing. One thing to note is that Greenlight is really the beginning and not the end of the conversation. It's not going to be a gate preventing data from flowing through, so please keep that in mind when you're building rollover processes around Greenlight. I'm looking forward to sharing more details with you before Back to School 2020. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it back to Lucia to share a little bit more about school leader tools.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. So as we wrap up here on the features, I do want to take a moment and just end here and highlight our school leader tools. These are for school tech leads or school technology leaders. And just as a refresher, school tech leads are those really tech passionate individuals at schools. They're responsible for helping teachers adopt and discover ed tech. And they typically provide training and help teachers integrate ed tech into their curriculum. So generally, we know that these folks play such a critical role in driving engagement in your product. So we want to invest in tools that are going to empower them to actually champion your ed tech in the classroom. Let's see what some of these tools are going to do. So number one, they're going to be able to demo teacher and student accounts. This is great so that they can show teachers and others what will that full experience look like. They're also going to be able to troubleshoot with tools that you might even be familiar with. So that's things like the data browser, one-time teacher impersonation, and then one of my personal favorites, they're going to be able to recommend EdTech from the Clever Library. So you all may know the Clever Library as our really great kind of free app store where teachers can go discover and install incredible EdTech within a few clicks. School tech leads are now going to be able to recommend products directly from the library to teachers. So really great stuff here. But then moving forward, I think about this quote from Brandy, and her feedback just embodies the needs of that school tech lead, and they really validate for us that the work that we're doing is in fact supporting what they do within their school community. So Brandy let us know, and Brandy's a school tech lead from California, but she let us know that she started to think ahead at the new school year, whether they were going to have a remote or perhaps blended learning environment. And since teachers wouldn't be able to instruct their students on logging in directly, she just wants to make sure that she has videos and resources available straight out of the box that she can share so that folks know how to use Clever and they can access the tools and resources they need. So again, feedback like this and others that we've received really just show us that the most engaged classrooms are typically those that are supported by folks like Brandy. So building off of that and then going back to the whole concept that we've been talking about here from the beginning is user education. User education continues to be a primary area of focus here at Clever. It's so important that we help our districts and our teachers become Clever experts to help drive engagement. And so as a brief refresher, the Clever Academy offers quick start videos to learn about Clever. And so now with the Clever Academy, we're going to be opening up the Clever Trainer program to these school tech leaders so that they can deliver PD training to their teachers on how to navigate the Clever portal. We already know that this has been super effective. Just in 2019, this was probably one of our most popular rollouts. One district even told us in the past month, they did something like over 20 Clever trainings for over 1,800 people. So you can just imagine the scale of that. Clever Academy makes it easy for districts, for teachers to roll out trainings, on their own time without having to necessarily attend a live or definitely in-person training, which is clearly difficult right now. And then finally, this is something that we are so excited to share is that many of you have told us that you're eager to complete the Clever Academy yourselves. And so I'm happy to share that we're going to roll that out for partners at the end of May. So I encourage you all to check your email for more information on how to access it in the upcoming monthly newsletter. Alrighty, so we're starting to near the end. I know that we've reviewed a lot of great features for back to school today, but some of you may be wondering, how do these fit into back to school planning, right? Because that is coming up. So as usual, you should know that we'll be doing a district facing end of year guide soon. We're going to follow it up with a back to school guide in the fall. So this means things like rollover information, pause, start, and end dates. Those are going to be available soon. But in the meantime, as you start thinking ahead, just please know that Clever will be sending district and application partners resources both for the end of year and for the back to school season. So in this interim period, really just encourage you to reach out to your customer success manager to discuss, how should you incorporate these features into your back to school strategy and into your onboarding plans. Alrighty. Last thing I want to share with you today is please stay informed. We have a lot of great things coming out to help give you guys the right information on time. Number one is our monthly partner newsletter. It's a wonderful thing that our marketing team sends out, gives you the information you need about upcoming events and features. If you feel like you're not part of this today, just reach out to your customer success manager or support, and we'll make sure that you get added. 2 quarterly product webinars today. Just know we're going to be doing these quarterly. So in Q3, you can expect another one with even more updates on our roadmap. And then finally, where you don't see the announcements through a newsletter or a webinar, in product, we'll also be placing announcements and information for upcoming features and events. Alrighty, everyone. This has been a wonderful wrap. We're now going to open it up to our Q&A session. So excited to see those questions. Okay, so it looks like one of our first ones here. Question is, what can we do to prepare for summer school? So this is a great one. So we know that each of you are probably supporting summer school somewhat differently, right? Just depending on your integration. Clever is currently circulating a summer school guide with our districts right now. I think it actually went out yesterday. In the guide, there's a section that's actually breaking down some of the common circumstances. And it suggests guiding questions to districts that they should really ask their application partners so that they can figure out, does that partner support summer school in the way they expect? So again, in summary, guide went out yesterday to our district admins. If you all are interested in seeing what that guidance looks like, just reach out to Clever so we can share. Another question, it's great. How do families access the portal? Alrighty, so in order for parents or guardians to create a Clever portal account, again, they need to be invited by the district. So this isn't actually something that they go and do on their own. They need to receive an invite from their child's school district administrator. But once they receive that invite and they accept, they're going to be able to create an account, and they're going to have the ability to download something like a Clever badge to help their child log in. They're also going to be able to view any links that the district has shared with them. So it's a really, really great start to getting families into Clever.
Oh, Lucy, I'll give you a breather and take a few.
Thanks.
It's Rob here again. I'm seeing question, is teacher analytics the same as EdTech analytics? And good question. We do want to distinguish here. EdTech analytics is a tool we launched earlier this year that helps districts get a holistic view of all the EdTech usage in one place. Whereas teacher analytics, we just recently launched. This allows an individual teacher to see the activity in his or her set of students and classes. This has been really useful actually during the remote learning period, just to see which students are engaged in logging into applications. It does not, though, show how long students have been in applications. That's kind of reserved for the EdTech district offering right now. Next, I see a question. Are students still logging into Clever from home? So yes, as I said earlier, we did see an almost 20% decline in student logins, but we're still seeing a lot of activity from students generally. What's interesting is the uptick around engagement time-wise, where we've seen students and teachers just spending way more time in Clever on weekends and evenings. So the profile of usage has definitely shifted, even though we've seen kind of an overall decline. A question on what is Clever doing to ramp up customer support? So I think we announced last year where we've opened, and we've now actually opened an East Coast office in North Carolina. The folks are working virtually, of course, for now. And the idea there was to make sure we just had better coverage for East Coast hours and to continue ramping up support. We're also just expanding. I think a lot of you know we kind of swell the size of our support team during back to school, and that hiring plan is right on track. So we expect to be ready. Our team was able to handle the recent swell in volume, but we also are tending right to our back to school plan. And Emily, I see a good question here for you. How do I fill out my custom app onboarding guide?
Great question. Um, Once we release this feature, you're going to see a new district setup tab within your settings in the dashboard. There are going to be prompts there that walk you through how to set it up, as well as a link to our Help Center article that you can reference for additional support.
Great, thank you. Another question, is there any discussion of extending the free Clever for Schools offer using for free products later than July 1st? So far we found that the July 1st deadline has met almost all the needs of our partners, but that we made that decision and call very early, not knowing what summer school, what back to school would look like. So that this is actually a conversation I'd want to continue as we get closer to that period and understand, are you hearing this from your districts? Are you hearing more districts say, please, 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 can you extend usage over the summer, and then revisit that decision? So whoever asked that question, if you could please get in touch with me, I'd love to talk more about it and understand how we could best support you through the summer.
Great. Looks like we have a couple more questions. One of those is, where can I get more information on Greenlight? So I would just say for this one, keep an eye out for more information in our monthly partner newsletter. If you have any questions in the meantime, just reach out to your partner success manager or Clever support. Just know that, again, we will be sending out that information in due time. Another question is, will a recording be sent after the presentation concludes? I love that question. Yes, absolutely. We're going to send the webinar recording to all registrants and attendees. All righty, I think that wraps up our questions. That's a wrap. Thank you so much, everybody. We really, really appreciate your taking the time to join us here today.